emergência humanitária. Devo dizer aqui que muitas vezes neste Parlamento estiveram aqui muitos deputados que anunciaram que isto ia acontecer. E isso também deve ser posto a seu crédito. Porque nós, a União Europeia e a comunidade internacional, demoramos muito tempo a reconhecer que Maduro é...
I don't want to deprive anyone of the time. Mr. Faria, for 1 minute.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente. A minha luta pela liberdade e pela democracia na Venezuela não é de agora, como acontece com alguns colegas recém-chegados a esta causa. E por isso quero dizer que num país em estado terminal como a Venezuela, um apagão de 4 dias seguidos tem consequências tremendas. Os supermercados, muitos deles propriedades portuguesas, são saqueados e o prejuízo só não é maior porque já resta pouco para vender. E nos hospitais morrem bebés prematuros e muitos doentes cujas funções vitais dependiam dos equipamentos agora desligados. Afirmar como Maduro que a precariedade da infraestrutura elétrica é resultado de sabotagem informática internacional e das sanções económicas americanas é uma falácia e é sobretudo um insulto para os milhões que saem da Venezuela desesperados e com fome. O colapso do sistema elétrico é resultado de anos de corrupção e de incompetência de um regime ditatorial que há muito aproveita estes apagões para desviar para offshores muitos milhões de petrodólares que o país recebe. Estes cleptocratas do regime e os responsáveis pelos crimes contra a humanidade na Venezuela devem continuar a ser alvo das sanções da União, que necessitam agora de ser também estendidas aos seus familiares. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Mrs. Zdrojewski, for 1 minute.
Sytuacja w Wenezueli jest rzeczywiście dramatyczna. To dramat dzieci, dramat matek, dramat starszych osób, dramat całych rodzin. Ale chcę wyraźnie podkreślić, że pomysły, które pojawiły się na sali, z mojego punktu widzenia są mało wiarygodne, jeżeli chodzi o rzeczywistą skuteczność. Uważam, że nasze interwencje polityczne będą miały bardzo ograniczony skutek. Natomiast to, nad czym trzeba się skupić, to oczywiście nad mobilizacją opinii międzynarodowej i pomoc humanitarną. I wydaje mi się, że bardzo istotne jest, aby pamiętać, że Wenezuela z tymi kłopotami zmaga się od de facto 1948 roku i dzisiejszą debatą nie pomożemy Wenezueli, jeżeli nie będziemy konsekwentni, jeżeli nie będziemy stale monitorować sytuację w takich przypadkach i jeżeli pomoc humanitarna będzie, krótko mówiąc, chaotyczna. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you. Mrs. Salafranca Sanchez, for 1 minute.
El gobierno usurpador de Venezuela se está desmoronando, se mantiene solamente en el poder como consecuencia del uso y del ejercicio de la fuerza bruta en medio de enormes sufrimientos de la población. La pregunta, señor presidente, es cuánto sufrimiento tiene que experimentar todavía la sociedad de Venezuela y cuántas muertes se tiene que cobrar todavía.
Como a portuguesa que ali reside e trabalha. O povo venezuelano, mobilizado nas ruas, mantém-se firme e resistente, afirmando que não abdicam da sua independência e revolução bolivariana e gritando: tirem as mãos da Venezuela.
Thank you, Mr. Etheridge. 1 minute for you.
Thank you. The situation in Venezuela is an absolute tragedy. It's been led to through socialism, which leads always, when in government, to catastrophe, and absolute socialism has led to absolute catastrophe. The people there are in an awful place, a crisis is going on. The only thing I can possibly say that could make it worse is well-meaning but bumbling intervention. I suggest that the EU and other foreign players be very, very careful with this and then be there to trade with and talk to, in diplomatic sense, the Venezuelan people when they get back to their feet.
Thank you. Well, Commissioner, there's no time for your response. You have the floor.
This has been a very useful and meaningful exchange, and I thank honourable members for your interventions. The EU policy towards Venezuela will continue encompassing both elements of pressure, but also a political channel through which we can contribute to a peaceful and democratic solution. We will continue working with countries of the region and other international actors, notably through the International Contact Group, and use all our instruments to accompany the country towards a peaceful and negotiated solution. Of course, Venezuelans both in Venezuela and abroad, will continue to be our key concern, and we will continue our efforts to help address their needs. May I close by signalling once again my appreciation of Parliament's role in keeping this important issue on the international agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that one colleague was asking for the floor on the KGI procedure, but I've been informed that that was the case only the moment we started the KGI procedure. The rule then is that that is closed. I'm sorry, and my colleagues haven't seen you. I mean, I do apologize, but I can hardly do anything about it.
All of them. And I wrote down before
can you speak on the microphone? I will do an unusual step, and you have 1 minute from this place, please.
No, it's okay. No worries.
You don't want the 1 minute?
Yes, I do.
We are running out of time, I'm sorry, but once again, for all colleagues, the rule is that they close the eye, you ask for the floor, you eventually get the floor, but the moment we start speaking, it is closed. So colleagues were right not to take that request, but anyway, I haven't seen it. My apology, but you have now your 1 minute. I'm sure you can speak even without the paper.
From here. Okay. Well, I said that, yo sé que Venezuela vivía un periodo de oscuridad, pero eso ya lo sabíamos, pero con una crisis humanitaria sin precedentes. Pero hoy esa oscuridad no es una metáfora, es una realidad. Es una ciudad donde mueren los niños en los hospitales, sin luz, sin agua, con una... ya hemos visto cómo la reacción de Maduro en la frontera, quemando los camiones con medicinas delante de los enfermos, quemando la comida delante de los hambrientos. Y Europa sigue hablando del grupo de contacto y Maduro se ríe de nuestro grupo de contacto y de nuestro diálogo. Lleva meses y años llevamos viéndolo. Yo creo que la Unión Europea no puede hablar de elecciones libres solo en modo no concreto. Tiene que hablar con Guaidó y poner una fecha y tener saber lo que va a hacer, no simplemente decir, porque Maduro jamás va a convocar unas elecciones libres. Por tanto, lo único que quiero es decirle al bravo pueblo venezolano que hay mucho...
Thank you, colleague. Same rule to everyone, 1 minute sharp. We are behind schedule. And again, once again, please do recall what I have said about the rules on the KGI procedure. I have no other option. Anyway, the debate is closed. The vote will take place at the next part session. We will now proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is the report of Mrs. Fotiga, follow-up taken by EAS 2 years after the EP report on EU strategic communication to counteract propaganda against it by third parties. Madam Rapporteur, Mrs. Fotiga, you have 4 minutes. Please take the floor.
Thank you, President, Commissioner, colleagues. It is my privilege to present recommendations to the Council and Vice President High Rep, prepared 2 years after adoption of the important report on the EU Stratcom to counteract hostile propaganda against it by third parties. I served as the EP rapporteur of the other report as well. The first report adopted in November 2016 was divided into 2 parts, indicated major actors in this work against EU in presentation of hostile propaganda. It was state actor, namely the Russian Federation, and non-state actors, predominantly radicalized Islamic organizations like ISIS. This time we decided to structure the report recommendations differently, thanks to contribution of representatives of major political groups in the Parliament. We divided recommendations into parts indicating state of play 2018 and targeting the hybrid warfare methods of this. We then there stress the necessity to avoid censorship while countering the hostile propaganda, disinformation, misinformation that is presented to the EU and its member states. We stress the importance of the quality journalism, of sustaining the freedom of speech and freedom of media. We also indicate the notion of possible legislative regulatory activity both at the level of EU and international level. There are parties indicating necessity to even introduce humanitarian law to deal with the cyber warfare or the information warfare. We stress the changing patterns of a variety of actors. In terms of radicalized organization, we mentioned that instead of very popular websites that increased the level of radicalization of youth, there are methods of encrypted messaging, services of messaging that are very popular. Much has been done both within the EU institutions, EU-based institutions and organizations, and by civil society during those 2 years. We mention all of these activities in citations. I would like to stress the importance of the Code of Practice on Disinformation, the activity of European Endowment for Democracy, as well as the transatlantic cooperation and cooperation with like-minded countries and institutions like the Transatlantic Commission on this. In the second part of this report, we especially indicate types of misinformation, disinformation and hostile propaganda. And the third part is dedicated to methods of safeguarding our elections. Current year 2019, is the year of over 29 various elections in EU member states, including European elections that are to take place in the same time in May. And it is after experience of interference of Russian Federation in elections and referenda in the EU and elsewhere, we have to strengthen our resilience to this kind of activity. We indicate the role of Stratcom East and complement its activity, also indicating two other task forces, for Western Balkans and Middle East, North Africa and Gulf area. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo. Teraz w imieniu pani wiceprzewodniczącej Komisji, wysokiej przedstawiciel Unii do spraw zagranicznej polityki i bezpieczeństwa proszę pana Mimicę o zabranie głosu.
Mr. President, honourable members. Many thanks for making time to debate the challenge of disinformation and foreign interference, which is more urgent than ever in view of the European elections. Thanks to all who contributed, and in particular to Rapporteur Honourable Anna Elżbieta Fotyga for delivering such a timely and helpful recommendation. It closely matches the logic and actions foreseen in the Action Plan against disinformation, which the High Representative and the Commission submitted to the European Council. The response against hybrid threats should be a joint enterprise. We are doing and will continue to do our part, but Member States need to step up efforts collectively too, as the European Council indicated in its conclusions. The recommendation underlines the centrality of freedom of speech and expression, as well as media pluralism, to resilient democratic societies. Indeed, our fundamental values must be at the heart of our response to the challenge of disinformation. This is precisely the spirit in which we have drafted and now are implementing the Action Plan against disinformation. The report calls on the EU institutions to ensure that EU strategic communication becomes a matter of high priority on the European agenda, and that the EU institutions and Member States work hand in hand in fighting against disinformation. I can assure you that all of this is already happening. However, this is a long-term endeavour which goes beyond this year's European elections. So we count on the European Parliament's continued support, also in budgetary terms. With the Action Plan against disinformation, we are increasing the staffing of our 3 strategic communication task forces to better enable them to detect, analyse and expose disinformation, raise awareness about